Endings are so important in movies because no matter how great everything leading up to the climax might be, if the final scene hits a bum note, well, that sad trombone noise is probably gonna be the thing most people think about when they leave the cinema. And this has happened a whole lot with recent movies, with plenty of them proving just how hard it can be to serve up a tasty finale. Perhaps the ending teased a sequel we know won't ever happen. It failed to persuade the audience of its apparent emotional impact, or introduced a plot twist that was just fundamentally too ridiculous to take seriously. Whatever the reason, I'm Ewan, this is Whatculture, and here are a bunch of recent movie endings everyone hated. First up, the how many times do we have to teach this lesson, old man, of movies? It's Tron Ares. For all of its visual splendor and that banging 9 Inch Nails score, Tron Ares was ultimately a bit dull. And it didn't help that the film ended on an utterly lackluster tease for a sequel we know will never get made. But again, also Trent Reznor, so give me sure Dexter's leaving. Banger, wonderful. I don't know why I went full Miss Piggy singing that then, but yeah. Something that isn't wonderful, apart from my Miss Piggy impression, is Ares' finale, in which Jared Leto's eponymous program lives life outside the grid and sends a postcard to Encom CEO Eve, who plans to use the coveted permanence code to benefit the world. We also learn that Ares is now attempting to track down Sam Flynn, Garrett Hedlund, and fellow programmer Cora, Olivia Wilde, the protagonists of previous film Tron Legacy, who were most conspicuously absent from this go-around. Oh, and the villainous Julian Dillinger, played by Evan Peters, rematerializes as a program inside the Dillinger grid, implying he'll be back too. Except, of course, Tron Ares has been a huge flop at the box office, ensuring that these promises are basically all empty, and more to the point, were they much compelling to begin with? I don't really think so. Like, another sequel centered around Jared Leto's forgettable new hero with Sam and Cora presumably playing second fiddle just doesn't sound like much fun. Those Leto stocks, if you invested in them, have got to be like in the Earth's crust by now. They are not good. Film and TV is cool, but you know what else is cool? Protecting your privacy online. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 3 months free if you sign up today. I'd make that deal. Damn good deal. Next up, it's Jurassic World Rebirth. Jurassic World Rebirth may not be the worst Jurassic Park movie, but it is the most blandly forgettable, and that whole term all the way to its utter tasteless nothing burger of an ending. The survivors' final clash with the Distortus Rex, which goddamn I hate saying that name in every single list, concludes with human villain Martin Krebs, played by Rupert Friend, being eaten before Zora and company escape in a speedboat while Duncan, played by Mahershala Ali, stays behind to lure it away, apparently at the cost of his own life. But no, everything's happy. Duncan is revealed to have somehow survived at the last minute, allowing him to escape the island too, all while ScarJo Zora agrees to share the acquired biomaterial samples with the world for healthcare research rather than sell them for personal profit. And then there's the customary closing rendition of John Williams' iconic title theme to try and make us all feel the warm and fuzzies. Despite how fundamentally agonizingly generic and unimaginative this ending has been from top to bottom. It is the physical manifestation of the off-key Jurassic theme we use in memes all the time. You know? That's the entire movie right there, folks. Don't even need to go and watch it anymore. I've just summed it up all for you right there with that noise. You're welcome. I might be a bit harsh here. It's not the worst Jurassic Park movie ever, but it is the one that probably exited your memory banks the quickest, aided by its utterly lackluster ChatGPT quality ending. Next up, Indiana Jones and the movie that tried to be Indiana Jones. It's Fountain of Youth. Considering that Guy Ritchie's recent action-adventure rom Fountain of Youth felt like Indiana Jones from Temu and its dusty old bones, it's probably fitting that the ending cribbed quite shamelessly from that beloved franchise. At the 11th hour, we learn that the neon signposted hidden villain is one Owen Carver, played by Domhnall Gleeson, who faked his terminal illness and actually just wants the Fountain of Youth's power for his own mustache-twirling fancies. Carver then drinks from the fountain, like, good idea there, buddy, which will grant the drinker eternal life, albeit at the cost of the life of the person they love the most. But aha! Gotcha! Because Carver cares only for himself, he's suddenly drained of his own life force, withering into the form of a very silly-looking CGI old man, while the heroes make their escape. It's all very, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark at home. Hell, it's actually, we have Dial of Destiny at home, minus any of the Indiana Jones franchise's charm or artistry. Bland, obvious villain dies a predictably derivative death. Guy Ritchie, man, come on, you can do so much better than this. Next, a prime case of leaving it too long for the sequel. The Old Guard 2. The Old Guard 2 is a big old pile of meh from start to finish. A limp, snoozy sequel to an original film that, if we're being honest, never really had the makings of a franchise anyway. At least the finale seemed to kick into high gear, as protagonist Andy, played by Charlize Theron, battled the villainous Discord, not the messaging app, it's Uma Thurman, in an apparent bladed duel to the death. Hell yeah, we love bladed duels to the death. Of all the duels to the death that we have, the bladed ones, they're the coolest. And as fun as it is to see Uma Thurman swinging a sword around again like Kill Bill style, it all wraps up, or rather doesn't, with one hell of an anticlimax. Discord incapacitates Andy and hops on her waiting chopper, fleeing with Andy's captured comrades, after which she reconvenes with one of her teammates and they vow to hunt Discord down. Next time. Maybe with better execution, this ending would have worked as a dark Empire Strikes Back-esque middle chapter, but because there's so little reason to care about anything happening here, it just feels like the filmmakers have no idea how to end that movie. Considering The Old Guard 3 still hasn't been confirmed by Netflix many months after the second film's release, it's quite possible this admittedly stale ending is left hanging on this series forevermore. On the way, a big, bold, beautiful journey. Despite the talents of literally everyone involved, a big, bold, beautiful journey is one of those intriguing misfires that fundamentally doesn't work for one reason above all others. Its two lead actors have virtually no romantic chemistry. At all. As gorgeous and talented as Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie are, and how well matched they might seem as star-crossed lovers on paper, the vibes are just off throughout Kogonada's romantic fantasy, ensuring its soppy ending falls completely flat. After Farrell's David and Robbie's Sarah have completed their own personal odysseys and come to terms with their troubled pasts, they reunite and Sarah declares her love for David, as they share a smooch and begin their new life together. Yeah. But because the interplay between these two characters doesn't sizzle at all, it all feels really inert. No matter that the scene is backed by a deeply gooey cover of Pete Townshend's Let My Love Open the Door. All in all, it's just a toe-curlingly corny note on which to end an ambitious failure of a movie. Coming up, the movie trend that makes you want to unleash your own Disney villain. It's Lilo and Stitch. The live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch unsurprisingly made a number of changes to the beloved original animation. Some of them may be understandable, others less so, and the latter is certainly true of the remake's revised ending. The original animated movie ends on a deeply heartwarming note where Lilo and Nani's Ohana, or extended family, now include Stitch, Jumper, Pleakley, David, and Cobra Bubbles. But in the remake, things are a little more complicated, as Nani wants to study to be a marine biologist, and at film's end decides to pursue her studies in California, leaving Lilo in the custody of trusted neighbor Tutu. Many fans took umbrage with this, that despite the clear attempt to give Nani more agency in this new version of the story, it came at the expense of undercutting the original story's sense of togetherness and solidarity. As something of a compromise, the mid-credits scene shows Nani using Jumper's portal gun to visit Lilo and Stitch in Hawaii, which really just feels like a desperate attempt by the filmmakers to have their cake and eat it too. Yeah, this wishy-washy ending ultimately falls emotionally flat compared to the more straightforward original, overburdening itself with a desire to be current when the animated ending was, and still is, quite perfect. Next up, a movie title that describes the exact process of expectations meeting reality. Highest to Lowest. Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest is easily one of the most disappointing films of the year, made worse by an utterly interminable ending that just doesn't know when to call it quits. Music mogul David King, played by Denzel Washington, has a final meeting with imprisoned rapper Young Felon, played by A$AP Rocky, where he refuses to sign him to his label, leaving Felon understandably infuriated. This feels like the natural endpoint of the story, but the film continues for a lengthy additional scene where David auditions a singer, Sula, for his new label, as she sings the song Highest to Lowest. Now obviously, Sula's vocal chops are never in doubt, but this almost 5-minute musical performance makes an already wildly overlong film even longer. And it's hardly necessary to hammer the point home that David is getting back to producing actual quality music. It's just a wildly self-indulgent and overbaked note on which to end one of the most underwhelming films in Lee's entire filmography. Surely there was a better endpoint than this. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Given that the 8th and apparently final entry into the Mission Impossible franchise was given the hard sell as its concluding installment, fans reasonably expected it to end up with one hell of a fond farewell to Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt and his supporting cast. But for all of its dazzling action sequences, that closing send-off felt like more of a half-baked as though Cruise and filmmaker Christopher McQuarrie couldn't quite bring themselves to close the door on the entire shebang. This doesn't mean that Ethan had to die, but concluding the film and the entire saga with a totally flat scene where Ethan wordlessly reunites with his IMF team in Trafalgar Square just doesn't cut the mustard. The scene is shot in such a way as well that only Cruise and Hayley Atwell ever actually appear on screen together, making it seem as though the actors shot their segments separately, only for it all to be awkwardly and unconvincingly stitched together in post-production. The final scene of the Mission Impossible franchise needed to be epic and affecting, but this was a strangely underwhelming miss. Next, another simple favor. By the end of the wildly unnecessary sequel, Another Simple Favor, many were surely left thinking, please, no more. Mr. Feig, I beg you, please don't do this to me once again. No, the movie. It's coming. Paul Feig's original 2018 film, A Simple Favor, is based on a single one-off novel, and as a result, this movie sequel was an entirely original idea written for the screen. The original book wasn't conceived as a franchise, but despite this, the recent sequel ended with an absolute high roller of a setup for a potential third entry. After Blake Lively's Emily convinces her murderous triplet Charity, also played by Lively, to turn herself in, life goes back to something approaching normal, or so it seems. In the final scene, Emily is approached by Portia, played by Elena Sophia Ricci, the mother of her late fiancé Dante, played by Michelle Morone, who requests a simple favor and hands her an envelope, the contents of which are left unknown as the end credits roll. Considering that Another Simple Favor already felt like a pretty woeful exercise in desperately trying to make fetch happen, it's tough not to go, ugh, the prospect of a third film coming down the pipeline in a few years. Next up, The Amateur has a pretty amateurish ending. The Amateur is a mostly decent dad movie that nevertheless operated under the mistaken assumption that the people who bought a ticket to see this movie didn't want to see Rami Malek blow away the bad guy who murdered his wife. The entire film is centered around Malek's CIA cryptographer Charlie Heller attempting to avenge the death of his wife Sarah, played by Rachel Brosnahan, and at film's end, Charlie finally comes face to face with the man responsible, criminal mastermind Horst Schiller, a thoroughly wasted Michael Stuhlbarg. Though Charlie is captured by Schiller's men aboard his boat, Schiller literally offers Charlie a loaded gun with which to shoot him. However, Charlie instead reveals that he hacked the ship, which is now steering into the Gulf of Finland, where Schiller is taken into custody by the Finnish police and Interpol. Clearly, this was meant to be a clever subversion of expectations, but come on, when a movie is sold with an underestimated data nerd getting his pound of flesh, you gotta have him pull the trigger. You gotta get him going bam, 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 bam. I mean, you know, even the Jack Ryan movies from the 90s knew this. The whole thing of him being a fish out of water, he still kind of got to do a little bit of the old fisticuffs and the old pew-pew every now and then. You know, so if you're coming for that crown, you should try and, you know, match those vibes. Just when you thought the MCU couldn't get any weirder, we get Captain America: Brave New World. Captain America: Brave New World is one of the more middling MCU movies to release in recent years, and even when it comes to the much-advertised climactic clash between Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson and Thaddeus Ross, aka Red Hulk, or Rolk as he's known to his friends, it still falls short of the mark. Like, way short. How have we gotten to this point? It's so bad. For one, the movie waits way too long to pull the trigger on Harrison Ford's Red Hulk, considering how much he was featured in the marketing, and the subsequent fight lasts just a few brief minutes in an incredibly video-gamey, digital-looking field of cherry blossoms. Why? But the real kicker comes when the fight ends by Cap just talking Red Hulk down. He's all like, hey buddy, you and I were not so unalike. He's doing the whole Green Goblin thing in 2002 Spider-Man, but, you know, bad. Basically. Hey buddy, it's okay. You don't have to be angry, you can be chill. And then Harrison Ford goes, oh yeah. And then the end. That's what happens. Obviously, I'm being a bit of a dick there, but yeah, so we'll give out an anti-climax. And it's followed up by a scene of the raft where Cap reels off a corny can't we all just get along thing before Ross is greeted by his daughter Betty, played by Liv Tyler, who last showed up in 2008's The Incredible Hulk in the MCU, I want to say? And on top of this, we get a post-credit scene in which the leader, played by Tim Blake Nelson, warns Sam of an impending calamity so hilariously vague and nondescript, it's hilariously obvious the filmmakers had no idea what it was going to be when they shot it. Like, look out, Sam, things are occurring. Evil things in the future. Familiar faces. CGI, blue screen. Two brothers coming back. My best prophecy. If you got a better prophecy to share, you should put it down in the comments. That's the best one I've got going right now. But yeah, considering that Brave New World had well-noted production issues, namely poor test screenings and several rounds of reshoots, it's little surprise that the ending feels so ramshackle and kind of fudged together, not unlike the film as a whole. Bad movie. Next up, a movie title that reflected what you were saying in the middle of watching it. It's Hurry Up Tomorrow. Damn, these titles are making it way too easy. If nothing else, Hurry Up Tomorrow probably offers up the final word on the acting potential of The Weeknd, who gives another pretty shambolic performance in this psychological thriller where he plays a fictionalized version of himself who crosses paths with an obsessive fan, Anima, played by Jenna Ortega. In the third act, The Weeknd is knocked unconscious by Anima and wakes up tied to a hotel room's bed as her hostage. After an agonizingly overlong sequence in which she dances around and sings to his songs, she ends up stabbing his manager Lee, played by Barry Keoghan, to death when he tries to make the save. From here, Anima drenches The Weeknd in gasoline and threatens to set him on fire, but she only relents after he sings the song Hurry Up Tomorrow. Anima then sets him free and torches the hotel room as The Weeknd prepares for his next concert and stares directly at the audience with his serious acting face, which is perhaps more likely to inspire laughs than any sort of pathos or intrigue. I'm actually curious now what my serious acting face would be. Hang on, let me try this. Ready? Here we go. Or maybe it's a Flora. Or maybe it's a, or maybe we're going for a little bit of like a traumatized thing. It's like a, I don't know. I typical serious acting face. We're going like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where he's all kind of doing the Kubrick thing, or are we doing a whole sort of like, my God, story, plot, emotions, trauma, feelings? We'll go with that. But Hurry Up Tomorrow is just a confused mess of a movie from top to bottom, and the smug, faux, impactful ending only makes it worse. Next up, movie or content? It's The Electric State. The Russo brothers' adaptation of the beloved dystopian sci-fi novel The Electric State had so much going for it on paper, yet was ultimately a confused and chaotic mess that really just kind of, was the final nail in the coffin for their movie career outside of Marvel, I want to say. This transpired through to a saccharine finale which left many unmoved, in which Michelle, played by Millie Bobby Brown, discovers her comatose brother Christopher, played by Woody Norman, has been used to power the drone tech of evil CEO Ethan Skate, played by Stanley Tucci. I've not seen this movie, but if a guy called Ethan Skate doesn't skate around everywhere as the villain, then what's the point? Like, seriously, I just have this image of Stanley Tucci just shredding it, just hitting pure ollies and stuff. That would be a good movie to watch. I'd enjoy that. Stanley Tucci on a skateboard. Make it happen, please. But Michelle takes her brother off life support as he wishes. Skate is arrested, and Michelle records a hopeful message to the world, while the final moments imply that Christopher's consciousness continues to live on inside the robot Cosmo. Unfortunately, this potentially affecting sequence is scored to an almost prodigally mawkish piano cover of Oasis's Wonderwall. Enough that it might invite more chuckles and eye rolls than tears, pretty much ensuring the emotional climax is impossible to take seriously. When all else fails and it feels like a film doesn't have quite enough impact during the edit, I guess you just hit him with Wonderwall. And now's a good time to reveal that I'm also an Oasis hater. Bad. Bad. Awful. Fight me. Maybe the weirdest action movie of the year? It's Flight Risk. Mel Gibson's new thriller Flight Risk is a watchable but largely forgettable outing in which US Marshal Madeline Harris, played by Michelle Dockery, attempts to keep an informant called Winston alive during a plane ride where the pilot, who goes by the alias of Daryl, Mark Wahlberg, just so happens to be a secret hitman. Oh my god! In the climax, Madeline manages to crash land the plane, causing Daryl to be flung from the aircraft and then fatally hit by an ambulance, then on the runway. This seems to be the story's natural endpoint, but those who want Winston dead really want him dead. At which point Madeline finds a hitman disguised as an EMT, attempting to suffocate the poor bloke. Like, he's already been through enough. He's already seen Mark Wahlberg bald. You don't have to do this to him too. Madeline promptly shoots the second assassin dead before the film ends in a hilariously awkward shot of the assembled emergency services personnel peering inside the ambulance at Madeline, Winston, and the guy she just killed. Apparently not at all concerned that one of their colleagues just got shot. As a cherry on top of all this, in the final second or so of the film, comic relief character Hassan, played by Maz Ali, shuffles into frame to take a look for himself, ending the film on an utterly baffling and unintentionally very, very funny note. On the way, a great movie with a stinker of an ending. Relay. David Mackenzie's new crime thriller Relay is absolutely electrifying for the bulk of its runtime. Focused on Ash, played by Riz Ahmed, a fixer who tries to help a whistleblower Sarah, played by Lily James, escape the pursuit of a corporation she planned to expose. In the third act, Sarah is kidnapped by operatives hired by the company, prompting Ash, who has become emotionally involved with Sarah over the course of the story, to race to her rescue. But at this point, Mackenzie drops a clunky, contrived plot twist in her lap that basically derails the entire rest of the movie. Once Ash reaches Sarah, she tases him, revealing that she actually isn't a hostage, but rather she's the secret leader of the operative group he's been going up against the entire time. Basically, the entire events of the film were part of an elaborate sting designed to trap Ash himself due to another deal he brokered between a whistleblower and a corporation, Optimo, at the very start of the film. Optimo cooked up the entire fake whistleblower plot with Sarah, using her as a honey trap to find out Ash's identity and capture him. Now, to be completely fair on the script, there's definitely a way that this twist could have worked, because conceptually, it's pretty interesting, but as executed in the final film, it comes so wildly out of left field that it feels more like an ass pull than something given sufficient creative thought. Next up, a movie you probably forgot even existed. You're Cordially Invited. You're Cordially Invited is a perfectly inoffensive throwback to the silly, over-the-top rom-coms of the early aughts. It's got one big problem. Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon, the lead couple of the movie, aren't remotely believable as a romantic pairing. I'm not seeing it. I'm just really not seeing it. I'm sorry, I don't see it there. Thankfully, the vast majority of the movie is less about them as a potential pairing than the kooky central setup where their respective family weddings are double booked at the same location. But in the final stretch, the film finally pulls the trigger on Jim and Margot as an item, with a romantic reconciliation and subsequent smooch that doesn't really pass the sniff test at all. There is admittedly a funny gag here about Jim being the CEO of Delta Airlines, and that's probably where the film should have ended. But instead, we get an extended epilogue where Jim and Margot are now a very much in-love couple celebrating Thanksgiving together and considering eloping. I mean, good for them, but I just don't buy it. As fun as it is to watch Ferrell and Witherspoon squabble for 100 minutes, this ill-advised late romantic pivot ends the film on a total bum note. Next on the list, we have Novocaine. Novocaine is a mostly fun action thriller that ultimately stumbles at the finish line with its climactic romantic swing. The movie follows Jack Quaid's Nathan Kane, a timid bank executive who lives with a congenital insensitivity to pain itself. But once his co-worker and love interest Sherry, played by Praise Amber Midthunder, is kidnapped by bank robbers, he's forced to spring into action for the first time and get him. Yeah. Hilariously brutal hijinks ensue before the mid-film twist reveals that Sherry was actually in on the heist all along and is in fact the adoptive sister of the robbery's mastermind Simon, played by Ray Nicholson. It's an interesting, if predictable wrinkle, albeit one that's ultimately mishandled given that the film still ends with Nathan romantically involved with Sherry, no matter that she's gone straight to jail. Though the film bends over backwards to retroactively soften Sherry's complicity in the heist and the numerous deaths left in its wake, she still bears a fair brunt of responsibility per her involvement, and for the film to gloss over this makes the closing love-in feel kinda hollow. You deserve better, Nathan. You know, there's someone out there who isn't gonna rob banks and indirectly get people killed. Or at least invite you to take part, you know? Shared activity. Sort of doing this to you. You know, I hate to see a king fail. Next up, Ethan Coen's flop era continues. Honey Don't. The second installment in Ethan Coen's lesbian B-movie trilogy, Honey Don't, is all over the map quality-wise, and its central murder mystery narrative eventually resolves in wholly disappointing fashion. All this with an amazing cast at its disposal. Oh my god, why do these movies have to be so frustratingly mediocre? It's genuinely annoying. Private investigator Honey O'Donoghue, played by Margaret Qualley, starts the movie investigating a possible homicide and unravels a wider web of the kidnap and murder of numerous women. In the finale, we find out that the culprit isn't actually highly sus Reverend/cult leader Drew Devlin, played by Chris Evans, but Honey's lover MG Falcone, played by Aubrey Plaza, who also happens to be a cop. MG reveals that she previously killed her abusive father, and her trauma drove her to kidnap and kill troubled women who turned to Devlin's church for help, out of a deeply misguided sense of duty. As motives go, it's all pretty wishy-washy, and frankly the twist comes so out of left field and is so vaguely explained that it doesn't leave much of a chance for it to land. And yeah, it doesn't help that this confession is followed by a wildly abrupt and silly fight scene in which Honey burns MG's face with a kettle before shooting her dead. Cementing the overall ending is deeply unsatisfying. Again, this is so annoying. Like, I love noir, I love neo-noir, I love the Coen brothers. Margaret Qualley, After the Substance, hell yeah, this is Aubrey Plaza, Chris Evans, why does this movie have to be bad? It's so annoying. Next, we have A House of Dynamite. You won't find many endings more widely loathed this year than that of Catherine Bigelow's A House of Dynamite. This supercharged thriller about the US government's rapid race to intercept a nuclear missile fired at Chicago from an unknown source is absolutely electrifying for its first act, centered around White House Situation Room officer Olivia Walker, played by the always great Rebecca Ferguson. Before the missile can make impact though, Bigelow pauses away to then show the situation unfold from two other perspectives. Even so, we as the audience assume that the film will conclude by showing the moment of truth, and also whether the President of the United States, played by Idris Elba, will decide to launch a retaliatory strike. However, Bigelow again cuts abruptly away before the POTUS decides, and we never see whether the missile heading to Chicago detonates or not, leaving large swaths of viewers registering their frustration on social media. And sure, the frustration is very much the point here. Bigelow and writer Noah Oppenheim knew exactly what they were doing by depriving audiences of the explosive ending they were probably expecting, all in the quest to start a wider conversation. But just because an ending is meant to be unsatisfying, that doesn't mean that audiences are wrong for feeling like they were jerked around for 110 minutes before that point. You know, I get the annoyance. Coming up, a great insult to hit your big four-headed friends with. It's Mountainhead. Mountainhead is a TV film from Succession creator Jesse Armstrong, following four billionaire friends played by Steve Carell, Jason Schwartzman, Corey Michael Smith, and Rami Youssef, who take a weekend retreat in the Utah mountains. This occurs when the world is thrown into chaos after a social media platform owned by one of the quartet releases a new AI feature causing mass disinformation to spread worldwide. Sounds so unrealistic. What kind of world that would be an awful world to live in. Could you imagine if that was really the world we lived in right now? Could you imagine? Huh? Could you imagine? Well, yeah. While the mayhem outside grows exponentially worse, three of them conspire to kill the fourth, Jeff, to take control of his powerful fact-checking technology. But the film ends on something of a deliberate anticlimax. None of the murder attempts are actually successful, and despite his near-death experience, Jeff still agrees to strike a deal with one of the four, then to use his fact-checking tech. The ending seems to be saying that all of this, the worldwide destabilization and even the murder attempts, is nothing but a game to obnoxious billionaires so far removed from the consequences of their actions. But in a world where that's very plainly apparent, it feels a bit too smug and arch as an ending. This is definitely a case where the story could have gone out with a more heightened and emphatic bang. So yeah, like everyone watching this movie knows that the world is in a very weird and dumb place right now. You know, it's just basically doing the whole don't look up thing. We know, we get it, guys. Things are bad. Give us a little crumb of something good, you know? A little crumb, like a Predator Badlands. That movie's great. Go watch that. Bye.